Hello, everyone. I'm Keith Stone, your host for Office Hours, HeroesX Office Hours, v12, and I'm here with Greg Nagy, as usual, and Janet and Elen. And we're discussing the questions for hours 13 and 14. The hour 13 discussion question is, do you think that the ancient Greeks had the capacity to think of true happiness without thinking about the heroes that they worshipped? I love that question. But what did people say?
Well, there's one comment and also a question. A participant is wondering were the heroes that they worshipped role models for them?
Were the heroes role models?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes.
I hope not.
Well, yes and no. A role model can be somebody who's imperfect, because then that inspires you that there is redemption.
That's true. And you can be even better.
And they struggled and we struggle. So it all depends on what we mean by role model. Similarly, it all depends on what we mean, and that's the trick part of my question, when we say true happiness. That's tricky, and I'm ashamed of myself now that I reconsider, because as you all know, I love to think of whatever ideas are conveyed by this amazing song culture in terms of their words, not our words. And by saying happiness, you would be saying to yourself, well, okay, but what's the Greek word that Greg is looking for? And then I kind of throw you off by saying true happiness, very intimidating. It's as if somehow there's this true happiness floating in the world of perfect ideas, what Plato would call, well, his word was eidos or idea. Our word in English is forms. In any case, I would answer the question differently depending on what the Greek word is. If it's anything having to do with the adjective orbios, blessed, I'd say, wow, you better stick to heroic models. Mm-hmm. If there are other words, then other words that we might translate as happy. How about this? Fortunate. And there is such a word in ancient Greek, eutyches, in the classical form. Then I'm not sure what I would answer, because it's not directly related, at least in my mind, to the world of heroes. Mm-hmm. It can just refer to our world, our post-heroic world. Mm-hmm. And look at Croesus at any given moment. He was eutyches, but then the next moment he's not. Then he's doustyches. So one moment you're fortunate, the next moment you're unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
So very tricky.
Mm-hmm. One of the participants said heroes gave to ancient Greeks sense of purpose and significance in their lives, and then it changed. They looked for more logical paths to true happiness. So is there a shift? Is there a change in this search for true happiness?
Well, that's such a perceptive question, and you kind of have to answer it in terms of historical contingencies. I have to admit that by the time we get to the 2nd century CE, the era of Pausanias, I wouldn't be surprised if there were only a handful of hero cults still alive and kicking, very alive and kicking. And in the case of Pausanias, he even lists the 3 that he considers seriously. Let's see if I can remember them. I hope I won't have a Rick Perry moment where the 3rd will be oops. So let's go for Protesilaos. That's good. and Pausanias himself was, now we go to number 2, initiated into the cult of Trophonius.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, and he mentions this earlier on in his disquisition, is Amphiaraos, the one of the 7 against Thebes, who was engulfed, racing, chariot and all, by Mother Earth, and who is worshipped as a cult hero in Oropos and Boeotia. But other than that, by the time you get to the 2nd century CE, who else is there? Sure, Pausanias will tell us about lots and lots and lots of local hero cults, but they all seem to be dying.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, sure, people are looking for something different. And of course, we're now in the Christian era where hero cults are competing with the worship of Jesus in various Christian communities. So it gets messy. So I like your participant statement, but the only way I could struggle with that is to try to look for historical sources and actually think of people who are questioning. And then, of course, if you go to hardcore philosophers like Aristotle, he hardly ever mentions heroes, or he mentions them only as historical curiosities. And as for Plato, well, Plato has his own motives, and this has to do with something we shouldn't get into now. Let's wait for this till a later point in our conversations. But this has to do with the fact that, yes, Socrates did have a hero cult in Plato's academy. And even Plato had one after he died. But still, that kind of hero cult obviously would be driven by Platonic philosophy, not by traditional patterns of hero worship.
At that time, then, how was the practice of initiation into cult and cult worship done? That's one participant is wondering, how was the initiation?
What would be the initiation? And there, I think, by the time we get into the 2nd and 3rd centuries of our era, I think it's more touristic than local. And you get that impression when Pausanias gets initiated. He's not somebody who's a native of Lebadea, where the cult of Trophonius is, and he even has to do all sorts of ritual maneuvers to pretend that he's a local. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that the 2 boys who assist in the initiation have to wear the local footwear. Well, presumably that means that local boys are stepping on Mother Earth and are connected to Mother Earth. But again, Pausanias, the tourist, I shouldn't call him a tourist, but you see what I'm saying, the traveler, has to be connected almost artificially to the local Mother Earth in that description.
Yeah, the fact that they have these mechanisms for bringing strangers into the worship of the hero.
And I think one of the big strengths of Christianity was that Christianity tends to level out these local variations. And there's so many of these local variations. Okay, here's something. It's interesting that Pausanias is very self-conscious about how, when he's asking local folk, okay, where is your hero buried? A lot of times they won't tell him because, he's a stranger, and we want to hold on to our local traditions into which we were initiated. So no, you're an outsider. We won't tell you where our heroes are buried. But of course, that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because that means that these secrets will die out and stay secrets.
Mhm.
Shifting a little bit, one of the participants said the scene where Hector, Andromache, and Astyanax are together, there is no God present, or there's no intervention in this scene. God's intervention is in this scene, and there can be happiness without thinking God's.
Well, but in that scene, are they really happy? They know they're doomed. I would counter argue a little bit that it's really a very bittersweet scene, and sure, they smile through their tears, or at least Andromache smiles through her tears, but
And they both laugh
and they both
when Styanax
you know how cute our child is, but
right.
there's so much pathos there because they both sense that the little boy will get killed.
And they're both heroes, you could say, themselves. They're participants in this, or figures in this heroic narrative. They don't need to invoke yet further heroes in order to describe their happiness.
No, they wouldn't. But our participant is very clever in asking the question in various scenes that we see in the Iliad, for example, and in the Odyssey. Which ones of those scenes involve the presence of gods, and which ones don't? And I would say, now that I think of it, that there are lots of scenes where there's no explicit mention of some god being present and being involved in the action, almost like a director of a play.
I was curious, I checked the passage, and Zeus's name mentioned a couple of times, not present, but gods are so infused in their lives. Is there any moment that we can think of without?
Yeah, if the character mentions gods, then that does imply, doesn't it, that there's an awareness of a presence, there's an awareness of interactiveness with the gods. Yeah, but a lovely question, and it really makes you think. It's good to think with, isn't it? My compliments to the participant.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most tender scenes that we mortals us connect with.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, the scene where Hector is stripping the body of Patroclus of the armor of Achilles so that he can put it on himself and be an Achilles lookalike. Zeus is watching and he says, okay, you're doing this, but you'll regret this, and you're going to make your wife a widow, and she will cry and she will lament. And I say somewhere in my various analyses that Zeus is almost like a German film director here. He's kind of situating, okay, this is a moment where you're pleased with yourself, you're happy, but it's going to boomerang.
Yeah. There's also a type of common question from a participant about was happiness as much of a motivator as chaos?
Yes, excellent. So again, let me express my apologies to all the participants about my trickiness in saying, in an intimidating way, true happiness. Very tricky. So I wouldn't mind if a participant said, this game is unfair. What Greek word are you thinking of, Greg?
And another comment was about afterlife and true happiness. Is true happiness is in this life or afterlife?
Well, okay. Now let me safeguard myself by simply thinking in terms of one word, and that's olbios. And I'd say in the case of olbios, it's said best when we hear the aphorism, count no person olbios until after they're dead. Or until they're dead. Let's put it more vaguely. And so there you say, well, that kind of happiness, blissfulness, can only be achieved after you die, because before then, the fickle wheel of fate can make you fortunate one minute and very unfortunate the next minute. And so, is that true happiness? Again, I'm starting to play.
But worshippers, we know, can become olbios in some sense by making contact with the hero.
And that is true happiness. True happiness, true being olbios.
Right. But it has to be maintained. It has to recur seasonally for it to last. Or something.
So that's a good attitude, but you can lose it, and then you can lose the attitude because you forget to maintain contact, mental contact with the hero you worship, and then look out.
Anything else for hour 13? No?
Let's try hour 14.
Let's try hour 14. Yeah.
Let's see here. That question is, if you compare the lament of Achilles over Patroclus with the lament of Briseis, which of the two laments would you consider to be more artistic as a song?
Ooh, yes.
Now I feel this is another trick question.
Oh, this is very tricky. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, certainly people are thinking more of Achilles, lament being.
Me too, but why?
Well, one of the participants says, is Briseis lamenting the loss of a protector? Compared to Achilles, who is
make it less artistic?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, let me take a shot at this. I would think that in a way, the Briseis lament is more personalized, because you're not really sure whether she's sad about Patroclus or sad about her former husband. The parallelism is explicit. As I see your body all cut up, and there you are, dead, and I see in my memories my husband all cut up and dead. And then at the end, when all the women lament with Briseis, the wording makes it clear that they're all lamenting for Patroclus, yes, but they're really lamenting for their own sorrowful agenda. Everyone has their own personal grief. It's just that's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of lament, that when you're in a group, you could be lamenting somebody bigger than whomever you're lamenting. But deep down inside, you're lamenting for the people that you love the most.
Mm-hmm. And even for oneself, perhaps. I don't know in advance.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Briseis here is she's trying to survive. It's not necessarily that she was thinking, oh, Achilles is such a dreamy guy, although there's that aspect as well. And I'm hoping that Patroclus will set us up. But Briseis is trying to find a protector himself.
And it's such a dead end in the Iliad, because you never see the kinder, gentler lover in the figure of Achilles that you probably saw in other stories about him. And the only place you can find that kinder, gentler, potential lover of a woman is Patroclus. And so it's pretty grim, shall we say. On the other hand, the lament of Achilles for Patroclus is also indirect in the sense that he, as a model for everything that happens in the heroic world, if he says something or does something, it's a model for how other heroes should say something or do something. And in this case, he's modeling his own death and how other people will lament for him. And that's why his hierarchy of affections, his ascending scale of affections is so interesting. He says, this hurts even more than if my father died or if my dear son died. And here I am fighting for somebody that's not worth fighting for, because, well, in terms of this lament, he doesn't love Helen, but we know that in other versions of the Achilles story, he winds up after death being immortalized by having Helen as his sexual partner. Can you believe it? It's so non-Iliadic, but that is a tradition that actually survives by reportage. Wow. And to show you just how weird the story of Achilles can get, weird to us, there's another version where he is immortalized after death and becomes the sexual partner of Medea, of all characters. Well, that's an Achilles that I don't even want to know. It's just too different from the patterns that all my life I have become familiar with. But it's
yeah, with Helen at least you can understand. Achilles is vaguely in the same storyline.
Yeah.
As Helen.
Oh yeah. And
Medea.
she is the most beautiful woman ever. Well, woman / goddess. She is the ultimate, may I say it this way, erotic prize, as we know from the story about the judgment of Paris, aka Alexander. It's it just can't get more elevated, more extremely attractive than whatever Helen is. It's interesting that the graphic novel by Gareth, the artist in that graphic novel, the artist is so aware of the irresistible beauty of Helen that he only shows the face of Helen once in the course of all the visuals of this graphic novel. Everywhere else she is veiled.
That's to leave it to the imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to Achilles and his lament, it's very Iliad specific. Is why am I fighting to avenge the abduction of Helen? And look what's happened. I've lost somebody who is at the very top of my ascending scale of affections, higher even than my father and my son. In a way, it's Iliad specific, but it's not complete when you try to think of all the roles that Achilles could play in ancient Greek song culture. But maybe that's what makes it powerful, and maybe that's what makes it the best lament, because it's so Achilles specific. It's so Iliad specific.
I'm thinking about how lament is a women's tradition. And here's Achilles, not a woman performing a lament.
Well, so, but he's modeling for women, and we go back to that ritual described by Pausanias, that the evening before the Olympics get underway, how the women of Elis, which is the setting for the Olympics, watch for the sun to set in the western horizon, and as soon as it sets, they start weeping and lamenting for Achilles. That shows everything, doesn't it? Because what could be more prestigious than the Olympics? And what do women do to inaugurate the Olympics? Cry for Achilles. Cry and sing for Achilles.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is an elegant speaker and also elegant singer.
Yes. Oh yes.
Best of the Achaeans.
Oh yes. He's the model singer and the model speaker, as beautifully shown in the book of Richard P. Martin, The Language of Heroes, 1989. Absolutely. Which is on the Center for Hellenic Studies website for free. It's a beautiful book.
Well, we should wrap up, I think. So thank
Well,
you for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
again for this conversation.
And I apologize again for my trick question about true happiness.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time.